Hey, if you've been thinking about making a move to Kansas City, you might find looking at the Kansas City map to be a little bit confusing. I mean, what's the difference between Overland Park, Liberty? By looking at the map, they're really about the same.
Yeah, so recently we got a call kind of asking that question, like, we don't understand whenever you're talking about this town or this town, what does it look like on a map and what's the differences? So we're gonna dive into that.
You know, Kansas City doesn't have oceans, doesn't have mountains. You know, most cities you're like, well, there's obviously barriers why you want to be on one side or the other of that. Looking at our map, it looks like a whole bunch of highways, like a bunch of arteries going different directions. So we're going to help you understand, break down, and make this, a very quick way of understanding, I guess, how to dissect Kansas City.
Yeah, yep.
The first thing you have to know about Kansas City is that, yes, if you look at a map, we're separated Kansas versus Missouri, right? But, need the eye on there. But when you live in Kansas City, we really don't look at ourselves, I mean, we do, but we really are first looking at whether or not we are north or south of the river. So if you look at the river coming through the city here, this is what divides the city. So you're gonna have a bridge, a couple bridges here that are currently being worked on. And right now, like, these bridges are kind of out right now. There's a lot of construction going on. Being on one side of the river is going to really have the most impact on your drive times and on, where you live. Like you were saying earlier, people south of the river don't want to come north.
Yeah, I think there's, I'm going to say the word separation, but I mean, it's not. Obviously, we go all around the city, but it really is, if you're a Northlander, you primarily stay in the north, and if you're south of the river, for the most part, you do stay south.
So what's some of the biggest benefits? You live in the Northland. Why did you pick the Northland?
So we specifically picked the Northland because of where the airport is. So I live in Parkville, and the airport is at the very north end of Kansas City. It's actually really close to a town called Platte City. So it's way up north. If you live south in Overland Park or southeast in Lee Summit, you are traveling probably 45 minutes to get to the airport. So if you're moving here because of work but going to be traveling a lot, I would highly recommend looking north of the river.
She's talking about Lee Summit down here, Overland Park over here. Again, they have to cross the river to get up here to the airport. Depending on the time of the day, an Overland Park trip to the airport is about 45 minutes, and it's probably 50 minutes from Lee Summit, depending on the way you decide to go and what traffic patterns are that day. It's 15 minutes for you to get to the airport, right? And she moved to the area and had to go through the same decision a lot of people are going through as well, and that's where they picked and why they picked. Now, if you were flying into Kansas City and you were here for a convention, what's interesting about our city is, again, our airport's up here, but a lot of the convention centers are setting out here, or they're setting downtown. So ours are opposite side of the city. So a lot of people out south complain about the airport being in the Northland. We do expect to see a lot of development coming in around the airport here because, number one, it's mostly farmland right now. It hasn't been developed, and they just put a brand new airport in. So we expect there to be a lot of interest in developing around there. Maybe that'll change, but for now, a lot of people are making a decision on, do I want to be close to work? Say this is Corporate Woods area, that's where a lot of the headquarters are at in the city, or here, and drive to the airport, or do I want to live near the airport and often drive to work? People working remote more and more, I'm finding that they want to be closer to the airport a lot more often.
And also, at the end of the day, you're still looking at a maximum 50 minutes, no matter where you live and what suburb around the city. Max time to the airport or crossing from one side to the other is still, 50 minutes at the top. So it's still not a really long ways away. But speaking of that, let's kind of talk about the main highways and how that looks in Kansas City.
Yeah, so we talked about the river coming through here. We talked about the bridges. But really, the way the city is laid out is highways. So the first thing you have to know about highways is, let's look at some of the interstates. So I-70 cuts through the city like this. I-35 cuts through the city like this. And then I-49, which is also I-29, basically converts back to I-29, goes this way. So this is why Kansas City exists. We are a transportation town. We're a trucking town. There's a lot of railroads. The river obviously was the original draw, but the railroads and the highways has really put Kansas City on the map. So if you move to Kansas City, I'm going to teach you guys a really quick shortcut. This is the way that when you get lost, you can always find your way home. If you look here, this is 435, and it's a loop that goes around the whole city. It takes about an hour to go around the whole thing, but if you ever get lost, you can always get on 435, and 435 is pretty much going to get you home.
Yeah.
So now looking at how the highways lay out, again, we're looking at whether you're north of the river, south of the river. So up here, you're going to have Platte County. You've probably better handwriting than me.
Maybe not on a computer, though.
Here I am doing it. Platte and Clay County. Now, I would tell somebody Platte and Clay are going to be very similar. You really wouldn't notice that you lived on one side of that line, which is about here, or not. It's not that important. So that's what we would call the Northland, north of the river. Now, if you're looking at south of the river, you have 3 options out there. So you have Jackson County over here. You've got Johnson County here, which is going to have, Overland Park. And then over here, you're going to have Wyandotte. So there are some differences in why you might choose living in one of those over the other. Johnson County is going to be the primary draw in the city. So that's going to be the most expensive houses, the most amount of employment, the most shopping, also the highest price real estate in the city. Kansas City actually only makes up about this area here. So that's the actual city of Kansas City here. Most people don't actually live in Kansas City. They're going to live in one of these these large suburbs that we have in the city instead. Lee Summit sets out here. It's very similar to Overland Park. And Wyandotte's kind of its own thing. This is a lot of an older area that's being really gentrified and redeveloped. And then as soon as you get outside of that 435 loop, you are into more of a rural area. So let's talk about how the city is really laid out then, Nickie, in terms of downtown suburbs and the rural areas.
Yeah, so like Justin said, there's kind of just a corridor right in the middle that what we would say is Kansas City. And if you're living there, you're really wanting that kind of city feeling, downtown vibe. Your houses are going to be closer together, going to be more kind of row houses style, or just a
shotgun ranches where you can almost touch the neighbor's house,
right,
but the houses are 100 years old.
Right. Older homes, big, beautiful homes, but older homes in that area. And then if you branch out to what we're going to say is our suburbs, and it kind of goes all around the city. So it doesn't matter if you're Missouri or Kansas, east, south, northwest, all of those neighborhoods and subdivisions are very similar. So you're going to find similar houses in Lee Summit as you're going to find up in Parkville or Liberty. Like Justin said, Johnson County, you're probably going to have a little bit higher prices.
Yeah, maybe 10 or 15% on average.
Yeah, not a lot. But at the end of the day, the homes themselves are going to be very similar in all of those suburbs. And then if you go out to kind of what I would say the next string is going to be our rural area, where you're going to find Smithville and Kearney. Blue Springs, or would you call that?
Blue Springs is pretty much like Northland.
Yeah.
Right outside of there. So what she's talking about again is we have, the city is really built in rings. So this is the downtown area, and then really kind of through here. Then you're going to have 435 again, we talked about, and it's going to loop around this way and kind of out through 291. This area in here is really going to be like the suburbs, right? Once you get outside of this 435 ring, this is where it's going to really start turning rural. And rural out here does mean that there are cows. What do you call loader equipment and stuff?
Yeah, just maybe some tractors and some
when
farm trucks.
When it's bean season, you're going to get caught behind a couple.
Right.
Tractors.
But also living in some of those towns, you can absolutely feel like you're, living inside of a town. Not everybody is, farming by any stretch.
No.
So there's actually very few actual farming areas, but you are going to see those things once you branch out to that third ring.
Yeah, you're from an actual farming town, so you know what farming looks like. There is a cultural difference. Like once you get out to Kearney and Smithville, there is a little more of a country feel to being there, but it's really not. From somebody that's from the country, it's not really the country out there.
No, it's not the country.
Now, if you lived out in an area, like in the rural areas, you wanted to be on 2 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres, something like that. You wanted that large house and a little bit of space. It's totally doable in areas like Smithville, Kearney, Platte City. Baser is really popular, Piper, Bonner, Olathe. You get outside on the outside of Lee Summit here, like Bates City, Buckner, these types of areas. Now you're out in the country, in what we call country.
Small towns, smaller towns.
But how far are you still from getting to downtown and living the downtown life? You can really have both. And what is it, a 25, 30-minute drive?
20 to 30 minutes from probably most of those towns, and you're downtown Kansas City, no problem.
which is hard for people to understand coming from a lot of other cities. You know, we have clients that come in from LA and they're like, if I have to go to work 1 day a week, like they make me go in, sometimes it's a 2-hour trip. Now, when I'm looking at their map, they're talking sometimes 20, 30 miles, which is again, us going from about Kearney to downtown, or us going from Lee Summit to downtown. That's 30 minutes to go 30 miles because we're able to drive at 65, 70 miles an hour everywhere we go. And that is not normal in other large cities.
And even rush hour, you know, add another 10, maybe 15 minutes, unless there's an accident or something that's really shut down, you know, a road.
Now we look at the main attractions in the city. Again, we're gonna have the downtown area, which is gonna be Power and Light, Crossroads, that type of stuff. Currently, our stadium is setting out over here, both of our sports stadiums, the Royals and the Chiefs. There's a zoo that's setting out over here. There's not really a lot of development around these areas, so they're kind of destinations. You're going to drive in, drive out. Living near them isn't really important to most people.
Not at all.
And then everything out in the, you know, there's attractions all over the city, but by and large, most people are going downtown anymore to do most of their dining, most of their going out. If you're into, you know, shopping, there's shopping available in all of the suburbs. Again, if you wanted to travel out to the nice mall in Overland Park or head out to, you know, Independence Center, you're only looking at 25 minutes. Most people aren't picking homes based on being near the major city attractions. They're picking homes based on the lifestyle that they want and whether or not they want to be close to work that's south of the river, close to the airport. That's pretty much the primary driving factors.
Yeah, that, and honestly, the type of house. I think a lot of times it's like, I don't really care where I live. This is the style of home I want. So you have to kind of go out. You know what rings have those style of homes.
Sure, and that's, again, it's just gonna be kind of built out in those rings. And exactly right, that's gonna be the style. Some quality differences exist in different areas, but that's why you'd want to reach out to a real estate agent because we would know where those specific pockets are at and where you'd want to find that at.
But if you're Googling Kansas City, like he said, most of the attractions that are going to pop up are going to be in that center ring. Almost everything when it comes to, you know, like I said, you do the top 10 places to go in Kansas City, they're going to be in that center ring for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I'd really describe Kansas City as like a suburbanite's paradise because you can live that suburban life, yet you have access to the downtown. Whereas in other cities, you have to really make a choice. Are you an urban dweller or are you a suburbanite, you know?
Yeah.
And here you can really be, literally you can live out in the country and live all three lifestyles, you know, on your way home from work.
Yeah, on your way home, that's right. All right, so hopefully that helped getting an overview of the city and really what it looks like from kind of a map's view and what it might look like to live here.
And if you're even thinking about making a move to the Kansas City area, reach out to us immediately at 816-439-8705. Give us a call, text, email, whatever's best for you. We are here to help you make your move to Kansas City a smooth one. So again, remember, when it comes to moving to Kansas City, all you got to do is point the direction. We'll guide you there.
See you next time.